especially if the rider has already crossed the line earlier and he was one of the earlier finishers, we don't ever see him again. He doesn't come back to the finish bowl. The crowd doesn't see him. It's like a big, massive anticlimax.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot, obviously, changes in technology, changes in the media landscape, and then, like you say, changes in kind of the racing over the last couple of years since the Warner Brothers takeover. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts on what's gone on so far, like the last couple of years, and where things are heading.
So there's things that have continuously, like, just when you thought the racing couldn't get more intense since the last time we spoke in 2019. Was it 2019 here? When Omri won, and that was the first huge crowd thing.
Yeah,
it was. So, like, those were sights we'd never seen before, and the racing was as good as it could possibly ever be. But every year we see those moments again and again, and the racing gets even tighter and even faster and even better. So, and then with the switch to Warner Brothers, there's definitely a whole lot of, they've elevated the sport in a lot of good ways. The presentation, everything's a bit more professional and slicker. And just talking about, like, when you show up to an event, it does look like it's a sort of just a step up in terms of, like,
the branding, the signage, it's all kind of cohesive. Yeah.
But then sometimes that's come at a price, and there's been a trackside as a spectator. There's a lot of, if you look at a finish bowl picture from 2019 in Fort William, from the Visit Scotland Arch, which is sadly no longer there, and that's a tradition of the sport. It was been the Tissot Arch, it's been the Grundig Arch. No, maybe Fort William don't have had a Grundig Arch, but it's been many different things, and Visit Scotland for the last few years. And to not have an arch was just sacrilegious, in my opinion. But worse than that, I don't know what, they smooth out the finish, but somehow all spectators removed from both sides of the track. A long time ago, from the right side of the track was kept free because of crossing the track. But we used to have this huge sort of finish areas where the fans and spectators would line the course, but in a safe way, in safe sections, or still with B-zone. And increasingly, the fans have been kept away from the track, and from the finish bowls have got bigger, but they got wider, and they've made it less personal. There's less, I won't say intimacy, because you don't need intimacy, but if you're not surrounded by people, you lose that vibe, and it doesn't resonate through, and it doesn't translate as well to the live broadcast. The last 3-4 events, we've had lower spectator numbers than at any World Cup previously at those venues. A lot of it has been due to quite bad weather forecasts. This is, as everyone knows, has been the worst summer in Europe in living memory. We still haven't seen a summer. So that's part and parcel. But also, you're showing up to events, it's quite expensive to go spectate some events. Some are free. But then you can't even access a lot of the track, or the B zones are taped lazily far too wide. And at what point do you not come back to an event to watch, because you can't even see the action? You don't need to be hanging over the track and having wheels flying by your head. We don't need that, but you can definitely have a compromise. And even the finish area, the hot seat, the riders are so far removed, and as the rider crosses the line, he's whisked away. He doesn't even have a minute to celebrate, or especially if the rider has already crossed the line earlier and he was one of the earlier finishers, we don't ever see him again. He doesn't come back to the finish bowl. The crowd doesn't see him. It's like a big, massive anticlimax. The media doesn't see him. We can barely see him in the hot seat because they're elevated and they're hidden behind these big screens, and there's this massive arch, which, so basically, effectively, and you've got 12, 15 feet, if not more, just taken up sort of unnecessarily, and sometimes placed in the only logical place to view the finish line as a media, or a filmer, or a photographer. But that said, they are working increasingly with us to help tweak those areas so that we can work. But there's a lot of emphasis, and I guess rightly so, because Warner Brothers and Discovery are in the business of putting on a good TV package. But unfortunately, some of the time it's at the expense of the on-site live viewing experience. For spectators, Poland had a big finisher, and spectators were kept out of unless they paid to get in the VIP stand, which sat pretty much empty. We couldn't even go up and take a photo from that VIP stand, which was almost empty. So there was no like good vibe at the finish area.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a great racing at Poland, amazing racing. So I think, but every year they've been improving everything, and they noticing when things can be done better.
Yeah.
And even just this year now, we have sort of 2 or 3 dedicated media personnel that liaises and interacts with us working press, be it photographers or filmers, helping us do our job better and making things easier and getting feedback on those shooting positions. But you know, there's always more that can be done, and obviously this is not, you know, there's only so much that can be done as well from an event organizer standpoint. But I just always see way things can be better, and but I also just can't be a thorn in the side for every event organizer or thing. I just want the sport to be good for both the fans, the racers, and us media, and the people especially on site. You know, you don't want to alienate those people.
Yeah.
You know, like Fort William, we're used to getting 10, 15,000. I don't even think we had 5,000.
Okay.
Leogang, we didn't finish the finish bowl. The Enduro this weekend in Combloux was like quite quiet. So there's obviously some things could be done better from some standpoint, you know.
How do you feel about the lack of race tape? Has that helped you from a photography
amazing.
perspective?
I can't believe when we got an Enduro now and they tape off, you know, corners as they Enduro. If you just gave them poles, these guys would be in and out the poles. Give them half a chance. If there's no marshal, they'd be through the poles. So race tape sadly still needed in Enduro, not at like races like Stone King Rally, where a bit more the spirit of Enduro is followed. But it's so hard imagining how it is to shoot a World Cup with tape. Like, it's only been like the 2 years with these poles, and also when they suggested poles, everyone's like, "Oh, that'll never work." And, you know, I think we all were like, "Oh, good luck with that."
Yeah.
And it's working fine, perfectly. Like, I think we have almost less incidents than people cutting the course accidentally than we've had before. Also because we have more of the track shown on the live feed, which is also good. So the poles have been amazing.
Yeah.
Now and then they're in the worst possible spot as a photographer, but literally you have quite a few kilometers of track to shoot, because as much as we'd like to move the pole like 2 feet so we get a better photo, they do need to be at certain intervals to keep the flow of the track and opposing poles, and basically the riders still are using it as sighting and track boundaries. So we avoid touching the poles. We definitely used to in the old days like move the tape up and down, you know, and then forget to move it back up and down, which Jorge, who's now the marketing guy at Mondraker, he used to hate us for, and rightly so. But we can laugh about it now. But so the poles is a godsend, and it just looks good on the it looks good on the live feed, and it looks good in the photos. Makes our job easier. Some of the riders said it was hard to get used to at first, but yeah,
it looks cool.
Because the problem with tape, if you have a problem spot, you've got a marshal that doesn't actually have enough reserve tape, so you just have knots, and then they put a double row of tape, and there's more knots and more knots. So the gnarliest part of the track where you tend to shoot has got a bunch of tape with 20 knots in it, and they're just hanging. The branding's upside down. It just doesn't look good on anybody.
Yeah.
Like, you always want the event to look, it is professional, so you want, you know, everything to look professional. So tape never did look professional. Yeah.
Good stuff. How about more rounds? We hear rumours of quite a few more rounds potentially.
So I heard 13 rounds were presented to the teams, plus World Champs 14. But realistically, also heard from the teams that while that might be an ideal number to get to, it's 100% not feasible to do it within a year.
From a budget perspective?
Yeah, because that's almost doubling your budget. That's almost double. So you got to pay the riders double, you got to pay the staff double, your flights are double, everything's double.
Yeah.
And it's this time of the year, budgets are pretty much done for next year, I would for the most part, you know. And it's also not the best time in the industry to double. So I could realistically seeing it go up to maybe 9 events next year, and then double digits a later year. But sadly, I don't think I saw any, at least not for next year. I didn't see any sign that there's no New Zealand or Australia or South Africa. This is downhill I'm talking about. There's no South America. So those, hopefully, when we do get to double-digit races,
Yeah.
10 plus. And this doesn't seem, on the calendar, it didn't look like it was like a Whistler option, and it didn't look like there was another North America round. So it seemed like it might only still be Montsanan. But like nothing's official, nothing's out. I was just kind of filling in the dots with what dates and what months events are usually at.
Yeah.
But for sure, without a doubt, we should have an Australia or New Zealand or both. Or if you're flying all that way, 2 World Cups, 2 in New Zealand or 2 in Australia, or 1 in New Zealand, 1 in Australia, like they did with the EWS. And it's the same. I mean, Chris Ball did do that with the EWS. When we went to Chile, we didn't just go to Chile, we went to Argentina as well. So, but man, there's a lot of other countries that have huge markets, good TV markets, good bike markets. Santiago is like a no-brainer, obviously, where we had the EWSs there. And then going back to Japan, South Africa, where they have the World Cup in Stellenbosch, you could definitely have a downhill event. It would be a bit trickier because it would have to be shuttled. But, if they're reducing the numbers, then that wouldn't be as big a problem. So there's lots of, I think there should be more rounds, 10 rounds, and make one of them a throwaway because of the state of the sport. To do this sport with the amount of injuries, to have a season or a title decided on a broken finger, wrist, collarbone, or flat tire, the bikes are meant to, and you're meant to pick your right lines. But the nature of the sport and how it is to win a race now, you are riding over your head, or it seems like they should be riding you over their head. It'd be nice to have a throwaway, and not use it just because you don't want to spend the money to go to the event. You need to have a reason to use it. A doctor's note or something.